Yeah. I call this meeting to order at 4. Yeah. Roll call. Here. 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 And just remind me at the next up is public comments. Are there any public comments?
Link for the Zoom link.
I didn't find it. So it was like, oh, seeing no public comments.
For every infant present right now in the room, could you please reply in the finance chat with your email? Because I want to put you in the attendance sheet.
Yeah, so if you're a finance intern, please put your email down and reply to Nicholas's message in the DASG Discord finance chat. Okay, I guess moving on to advisor announcements. Are there any advisor announcements?
Don't think I have anything this time. My shoe is expected to be here, so perhaps when she gets here, there'll be.
Okay. All right, moving on to business item 1, budget request, student account office staff. This item is to discuss and potentially approve up to $2,500 as well as line item transfers for 41,513,103,100 accounts office staff DASG operating expense. So, what's that?
Can you bring up the, can you make it bigger?
Yep.
Okay. So, as you, I think most of you know, who were talking about the budget process, right? That the cost of living adjustment in the current year resulted in budget shortfalls in some classified payroll codes. So we're requesting that what we have available in some student payroll object codes be transferred to classified payroll codes to cover the labor and benefits, but it's still not going to be enough. So this request is a combination of the line item transfer requests that are already allocated in our account, but for different, payroll codes for student payroll, and then an additional $2,500 is going to be needed to cover through June for the benefits. So, if we have any questions about it, I have a spreadsheet that shows how I arrive at the numbers. No one?
You're so clear.
Well, the spreadsheet's pretty clear if you had a chance to review that. Again, budgets are just estimates, right? We base it on the information we have at the time and the current year that we're in. There was a large cost of living adjustment, probably the largest one I've seen in my many years here. So that's why we are in that situation. Did you have a question over there? No? Do you have a question? No?
All right, well, there aren't any questions, can I get a motion to approve? Or does anyone still have any questions? All right, yeah, so if there are no questions, can I get a motion to approve this item? It,
$2,500 as well as line item numbers for 415131
Is that good?
moved by Kate, seconded by Nico, are there any objections? All right, seeing none, we can move on to business item 2, so DASG operational cost process review. This item is to discuss the proposed changes to the process of evaluating DASG operation process.
Yeah, just go ahead and finish introducing.
Oh.
I just wanna, once you're ready, recap what we talked about.
Oh, yeah, oh, actually, maybe it's better you recap first.
Okay, so as far as I remember, I think we've actually finished the discussion on most of this. And the rest of what we need to discuss can be discussed on the next business item, which is about the forms and timeline. But let me bring up my recent email about it to Isa. We were communicating about the agenda. So so as far as I can recall from last week, so we had already decided that for the spreadsheets, we would have two spreadsheets for each fund, 141 and 46. One spreadsheet for DSG operational costs and one for external costs. We would work on the operational spreadsheets as soon as the estimated revenue is available during the regular finance meetings, hopefully in fall quarter. We would work on the external spreadsheets using the same timeline as we currently have, although we have discussed the possibly slightly changing the application availability date and submission deadline. The external spreadsheets would have one line at the top of the first page for total operational costs, which would just have the totals from the operational spreadsheets. All four spreadsheets would still be public and transparent, would still be approved by finance, and would still be presented to and approved by Senate. So yeah, so I think that's everything except in the next business item, we talked about the form and timeline. We can finish talking about those two, but I don't remember anything else.
Right, actually, I put on the agenda just because I wanted to maybe briefly discuss, it's probably not gonna be too long, but just for, because I know that the next step would be most likely to look at the finance codes and see if there's anything to change, so I kind of reviewed a bit of that, and I also wanted to get your opinion then, so is there anything that you think we should be changing? Or be looking at?
I guess we will just look at the budget process section. There's a budget timeline in there. So again, I think most of that is more tied to the next business item specifically than this one really at this point. But for the actual budgeting process, I think we should have count last week, but the rest of what we need to talk about is basically about forms and about what timeline we want to use. For especially the external accounts, but also operation. It's like page 4 or 5 or something like that. Yeah, it looks like page 4 is where we have the budget, Article 3 budgets. And then section 2 is preparation and section 3 is the schedule.
Can you make that larger?
Yeah.
Hard to read.
So most likely section, yeah, these are the ones that we're looking at as well, so section 2, section 3. So, that would,
Yeah.
Us us approving the operational cost is still gonna be considered part of the budget deliberation process.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be true. So yeah, I don't see anything in section 2 to update.
Or section 3.
So section 3, which is part of the next business item anyway, I'm not going to that. That's the budget deliberation schedule. And then, 4, 5, and 6, yeah, no changes needed.
Okay, so I guess, are there any questions so far? If
I mean,
not,
one thing, well, I guess I'll say it in the next night.
okay. If not, then I guess we can move on to business item 3, so that's the budget request form and timeline review. This item to discuss any proposed improvements to the DASG budget request form and possible changes to the request timeline.
So one thing, I mean, again, that's the way it is currently, but again, if we're looking at changing the our flow to see how, but again, currently we have 3 budget requests. One for just the operational costs, one for all external costs except athletics, and then one just for athletic. The only real difference between those two is that the athletics one only has the one object code for domestic conference and travel. So I guess part of the discussion is, do we still need 3 forms? Do we want to make it 2? We would still need something for operational costs, at least for, say, ICC or, any other operational organizations that need to submit updates, like student counts, for their payroll, for example, each year, or software maintenance costs or something like that, for example. So we would still need a form for the operational cost. And then we would need to decide, do we still need 2 separate forms for athletics and everyone else, or do we just do one? And then I don't know if anyone here knows this yet. I was going to look it up online. But one question I have, because I'm also looking at the finance forms, so that they are all online forms, is do you know, whoever's working on this, do you know if there is a way for people completing a form? Like maybe using the I forget what it's called, but where you can branch it off and things like that. Is there a way to add, for example, for object codes, some groups only need 1, some groups, fill out 10 object codes on it. Is there a way for people to just, if they have additional codes, to just click on, add, or duplicate question or something? So that's one thing I'm curious about. That's something we can do.
So the senator in charge of this is actually Aaron. He can't make it today, and so he said that his interns should be here, but I don't see his interns here. Oh, did you work on the forums by any chance? Okay, yeah, because I think he came in a bit like he came in pretty recently, right? Yeah. So, yeah, no, so Aaron and his interns kind of were working on changing up the budget request form. So I'll ask him to get you onboarded for that. But yeah, Aaron's not here right now, but I do believe that you can do something like that. At least for Google Forms, I've had experience, you can do something like that. I'm not too sure about Microsoft Forms, but it really shouldn't be that different. So I'll ask Aaron to take a look at that.
Guess we can talk about the timeline then, if they're not here to talk about the form.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about time.
So, like I said in the last business item, for operational costs, hoping to, as soon as the revenue spreadsheets are finalized and I get them from student accounts, hopefully in the fall quarter we can have the operational. So we need to figure out a reasonable due date for those. And then we had also, during last week's discussion, talked about maybe making adjustments to dates in both the availability of fall quarter, Monday week 2 to become available. But perhaps making adjustments to the due dates for the external. So those are two of the things I remember we talked about last week.
Wait, Dennis, can you repeat so the ones that, the deadlines we talked about maybe changing?
Okay, so right now, item one, right, you're on the schedule. So item one is fall quarter Monday, week 2, the DHE budget request forms are available.
Correct.
I don't think that needs to change. I mean, I doubt anyone's gonna be able to do anything anyway, so that's why we've always done it on week 2. We've also used to do week 3, but we figured might as well make them available. It's not like they're due week 3 or anything. So we try to make sure they're available Monday, week 2. And then, let's see. So right now, the budget request forms are due 4 p.m. Monday of week 7. So for example, this year that ended up being, I think, the first week of November. Yeah, November 6th. So the first Monday of November is when that ended up being this year. Usually it's around that time, but it depends on when fall quarter starts exactly. So, so we had talked about, is that a good date, or do we want to move it a week or anything like that? And then part of it, of course, is we have to have enough time to, get the applications together. Although if we're going to move to an online system anyway, that won't be as big a deal. So yeah, so I think one of the questions was the request form due date. And then of course, if we are going to separate out operational costs, we have to have one for operational costs and then one for it.
So I know the one thing this room that built the forms are, it's you, Dennis, and Lisa as well, right? You guys.
Well, me, Manju, Lisa, although that I think was for, no, that was that was a DSG homecoming one.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said?
He was asking who here fills out budget request forms for operation. I know you're one.
Yes.
Me, Maritza, definitely. I think
Dana?
for 1 or 2 accounts, Dana. But I think that's it right now, although technically, the DSG execs can fill one out too for the DSG Senate and committee operations account, if they want to make any adjustments to it for the budget request for the following year. So basically, you could at an exec meeting, talk about what to submit. So the execs would be another group that would submit a operational account budget request.
Yeah, so I think we could send out an email and try to ask around, maybe as well tomorrow and wrap, and if there's some people that there are some budgeters there as well that I can maybe ask, just to kind of get a view on like, is it enough time? Is it good enough? Do they need more time, or is it like more than enough, right? But at least from the people here in this room, like Dennis or Lisa, like how do you guys feel about the debate for the forms right now?
I think that you need to have the timing, right? I mean, to get the everything for you by winter break.
Yeah,
I mean, otherwise, if you go later, it's not really gonna be possible, I don't think. To get them to, I don't think Dennis's area could get it all together, maybe you can before they go on winter break. Because you start meeting on the budget as soon as you get back from winter break, right, the first week of January. So I don't know.
Doesn't take that long. Most of what takes the longest time seems to be these days is getting all the attachments in order and renamed and so on. Website spreadsheet usually on the page.
I think that's doable. I mean, we would just internally, make sure that we schedule it in our retreats and that, so that we can discuss it, so that we can have it like
Well, the reason was I can, once the external discussion, there's questions as well. We need to have enough time to, put everything online and. Basically,
That's
so
a lot of
sure
work.
that's-
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a couple days of something. But it's not necessarily,
Well, does this work for you, Dennis? And you're the one-
but yeah, the current schedule works for me, and if necessary, even later can work, but not too late. We need time, and we want to make sure to at least get the information to everyone in the finance committee, when I say the last finance meeting. And just, maybe even present it, and just, so I can show people on the screen, okay, here's where all the budget information is. The spreadsheets have been emailed to you, so, we don't want to do it too late. Ideally, we should get it, presented to finance. So that people can review it. Right. By the next fall. Definitely.
Right, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also talk about how, it's possible to interview the programs even without the newest requests.
Yeah, because in prior years, they didn't necessarily make the budget requests. They, they tried to have a standardized questions just about their program, and what it is and so on. What their budget needs are, how they're doing, and what their current funding, if they have any current funding. I mean, part of the issue is as well, they're new accounts, you don't know about. So the more you can get through before the budget application deadline gets here, then you can, any new accounts, sometimes there's a few, sometimes there's none at all. I think last 2 years, not this year, but last 2 years, we maybe had 4 to 6 different accounts, only 1 or 2 got funded. So yeah, so you don't necessarily have to wait for the request forms to be submitted to be your interviews. They're not necessarily specific to the requests. Now, during the budget deliberation process, I know that there were times when questions came up and so on, and I know, I think Nico was making notes of all those things. The discussion and the questions and the rationalization and so on. So if any questions come and something is unclear, then we just, email the budget after, during that process. But yeah, you don't need to wait for the forms to actually be here.
So how do the senators feel about the current timeline? I know it did feel a bit rushed, but at the same time, I think it's also partially because we kind of waited to do the interviews until after everything was posted. So knowing now that we could actually just start beforehand, how do you guys feel about it?
Should we also know how, the programs feel about the timeline? Wouldn't that be also important?
Well, that's what, you said, ask the programs how they feel?
Yes.
Yeah, Izad said he was gonna try to do that in the next, week or so, see what the people at RAP and other committees, who are budgeters feel about the current time.
Yeah, and I'll bring that information back and then maybe we can make a decision on, whether it's moving back or not. But yeah, that's a good point. I'll just hit.
One thing would be, what do you think would be a good timeline for the operational?
I think we should get it a quarter,
Well, no, but when,
before the end of the quarter, so
well, if,
November.
well, Lisa, when do you usually have the estimated revenue available?
Well, I change it sometimes based on what we're seeing
Yeah.
for the, all the enrollment, all that. Yeah, I mean, I might not get all that information until, because I don't get the reports from the district until the following month. So, I don't have the report yet for February, right? I won't get them till later in March. So anyway, I can give an estimate just based on what we're seeing, but yeah, I can do that early. I can do that early, because a lot of times you'll see I make it a little bit of an adjustment as we get closer to actually discussing the budget. The revenue projection is, I think, not as critical until you really start working on the budget.
Yeah, and
Right.
so they were hoping to be able to start operational functions in the fall.
Yeah,
Once
meaning
we
you
have
can,
the revenue projection. If
I-
we
I-
need to make adjustments, we can.
yeah, I don't even know that you need to wait for the revenue projection, honestly, because you're not you're not starting that budget work of allocating it out yet, right? Until winter quarter begins, when they start meeting to talk about the budget.
Well, no, with the new proposed, they would work on, so I don't know if you heard me earlier, there would be 2 spreadsheets for each fund.
I did,
So they would hopefully, work on the operational spreadsheet in the fall.
but you're talking about making a vote on the operational side of it?
At least getting the spreadsheet filled out,
Okay.
Maybe approving everything still in winter, after we've done both spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But at least working on it in fall. So that's why I'm wondering, when it would be a good time to submit, because we wanted to try to get those accounts out of the way in fall. And then,
Is it possible to have a last finance meeting that first week of December? That might give a little more time. I know you usually don't meet on that dead week, right, the week before finals, but that might give a little more time. So, yeah, okay,
they can be,
I can give an estimate that, it might change as based on information I get after that, so. I could give an estimate in November.
What do you guys think? Do you guys wanna do it in fall? If we do, so I guess the idea here right now is that if we do it in fall, we would have to do it later in fall. If we do it in winter, it would just be as per usual. The way we do it is gonna be a bit different, but the timeline will be so different. In terms of evaluating the operational costs, yeah.
I think we should do in the winter because if we do in fall, so our time will be limited because the time is near the final exam. So we don't have a lot of the option for program to choose. And I remember, only to the specific time to have the meeting with, the interview with the program, we have, I think only few days in the week, so it's kind of limited. So I want to move to the winter, so maybe.
well, no,
have
we're
more-
just talking about operational accounts only. The external accounts would still be discussed in winter, but we're just trying to get the operational accounts out of the way first. Hopefully in fall, as soon as we have at least the first revenue estimate. And we wouldn't necessarily have special meetings for that, and they would just take place during the finance meeting.
So the operational costs are the money in order to keep DSAG running. So it would be like Lisa's salary. These are essential things that we have to have in order to basically run. So the interviews that you did with like those external programs, that's a separate process. We wouldn't necessarily be interviewing, I think, the internal budgeters, because
Yeah.
again, it's the reason why we're changing, excuse me. The reason why we're doing this is so that we're not doing our operational, we're not competing with all the other external plans, because it doesn't make any sense, right? Like when you get your check at the end of the month or whenever you guys work, you don't sit there and go, okay, how much money am I gonna give to my friends? You gotta feed yourself first, right? And then if you have any money left over, then yeah, maybe you can take your friend out and have a meal together, right? So, so that's what we're talking about. So we're trying to figure out this new process for how we're going to treat the operational funds, so it doesn't compete with the external.
And it
Budget
also will help
deliberation.
things go more quickly in winter. Because we'll at least have this, if you remember, our first finance budget deliberation meeting. Maybe even, no, not second, so our first one on Friday, was almost all the operational costs, big chunk of it. And then we finally got into the external, external requests. So if we can try to get that done in fall, it will make things go more quickly in winter. And also about the interviews. Again, the interviews, you don't have to wait for the requests to come in. You can interview all the current budget earlier on in fall, throughout the quarter. And just to find out, what their needs are in the future, how they're doing their this year and so on and so forth. So yeah, you don't have to wait for the request to do the interviews. So yeah, so we're just talking about when in fall. So after we get the first revenue estimate, we could do the operational accounts. And again, we don't have to have special meetings, we just do it finance. But also the question is, what should the deadline be for the operational accounts? If needed. Probably we would want to have it maybe earlier than the regular ones, I'm not sure.
Well, Dennis, I
But-
think this is a conversation because we're the ones that work on it, and so I don't know if it's helpful for the students to, I'm not saying that you guys can't be involved in it, because, we certainly want your input, but they don't know the back, kind of, workings of this, so. Why don't you, Dennis, just suggest a timeline, since a lot of this kind of is on you? And, maybe just propose one that you think would work. And then let's go ahead and move on, since
I'm trying to
we
see
need to
where
have the 5 today.
emails. Sent me the revenue sheet this year.
Yeah, I think that is a good suggestion from Drew. I think students would probably prefer it not to be like super late into fall.
Yeah,
Right, because at that point we just make it winter, right?
yeah.
But, yeah.
No, we want at least the external accounts to definitely not be too. But again, you're gonna ask people to see if they think Monday, week 7 is good, or if they would like to see that.
My thought is they're gonna say the later the better, but
Yeah.
You know.
Do it too.
no, you have to follow some timeline to get it in order for you to be able to review before break time or during break.
Yeah,
I think it would be a nice idea to move it up earlier, because I remember during the fall, weren't doing much. Like, the best memory I have of fall was that we did an ice break.
Which is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we start at the end of September, right? We don't meet that first week of classes. You have all of October and a few weeks in November, because Thanksgiving, the last Senate meeting is actually the week before, or is the week of Thanksgiving, I think. Do we come back and meet in December?
No, that's why I suggested maybe a meeting. I don't know, that's up to, I think typically
That's the
still,
last.
but, so that means it's like right after Thanksgiving and then that's it.
yeah, and that's a good point by Yan Ming. But that's also why we're probably gonna push the interviews forward and do it before all the new requests kind of come in on the website anyway. So yeah, I think our timeline should be a bit more spread out next year.
I think moving into the fall could also help the interns to be more effective in the finance committee. They would learn the budget deliberation early on. They should get a feeling how the finance committee is going to work.
I will say that the way deliberate the operationals will feel a lot different from how we do budget deliberations right now. So I don't know how much experience it will give, but I do think it's nice to at least be able to see some part of the spreadsheet first. So. Dennis, you were checking the when you received. Yeah. Most likely on the code, we'll just have to add something for the operational deadline. As well. Yeah,
And if we want to make any adjustments.
right, yeah. So those are the two possible changes we're gonna make, section 3, page 4. In the finance code. Oh, all right, okay. All right, well, in that case, we're gonna have to wait till next week to discuss this timeline even further, so I'll bring back any information that I get, any feedback from the budgeters that respond, and then Dennis will also come back with the proposal for the timeline of the deadline. Right, yeah, for the operational. Well. And then the budget request form, we just hope Aaron comes next week, so. That's that. Okay, moving on to business item 4. So budget request and special allocation request outreach review. This item is to discuss improvements on the outreach review, but request and special allocations request. That's key and yeah. Yes, go to the left here.
Yeah, that's.
Basically, our interns have been working on it, very hard to see them.
Oh, you're interns,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, you wanna.
Is there airplane? No. You're gonna need to use the screen. Well, yeah, the system is being connected and it is going to be upgraded, so just hopefully in spring, maybe summer, like now, it's pretty limited.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go onto the Zoom and then put the link in there. Cool. Then, yeah, then I can just. I can open it up. Say why I have to figure out how to do that. Or actually, we just want to share something. We don't even share it.
You want to do that?
So last week we were tasked to find a method to outreach to the program and find a way to encourage programs to apply for a DASG budget. So the problem, there are two main problems. There are current budget deliberation, budget request process. Some programs do not know about the DASG budget, and this is the main thing we are trying to outreach. But no matter what method we choose for our outreach, we don't know how effective it is. It's the problem with shooting an arrow in the dark. We don't know if the method we choose is effective or not. And we also don't know how perfect is our current budget process form. And there's no, as much as I know, there's no official method of communication with the finance committee in regards to the budget deliberation. So we came up with some solutions.
Yeah, right. So before we find a solution, right, we have to set in parameters and requirements, and collect data, right? So some of the requirements we have created, basically, we want a more effective way for the ENSA programs to communicate their needs in regards to budget deliberation process. And then obviously a research must be conducted to find out which method of outreach has been historically more effective, and a relative allocation of resources based on the result of the research. And so the method that we have come up, well, the best method, research method we've come up with is basically a survey form. And so we want the programs to be able to, so the most effective method in which programs have been informed about the DASG budget and acceleration process. That's the number one objective. And the number two objective is that we want the programs to be able to tell us improvements in regards to our budget deliberations process if they see that there's something to be improved.
So the survey will have three parts and it serves for three purposes. And the first purpose is this one. I just take a picture from our survey, so it's kind of the introduction to the survey. And I understand that each of us have the same important role in serving our community. So I want to share to show our appreciation to programs. So just kind of express our appreciation for participating in the budget deliberation. So we can express it in the introduction. So the next purpose is collect. So next purpose is to collect the question. We use the question to collect improvements. So like we can ask them how to do better next time, like about the timing guidelines and sections. So we will give them some direction to answer the form, and then they can give us some recommendation, because we try to improve our budget deliberation more to be more convenient and efficient. So I think we can consider how programs define the convenience and efficiencies, so we can make our decision based on their recommendation. And next one is for the average. So I think we can ask the programs we already know how did they know about our budget deliberation, so we can identify which method is effective. So for example, if they say they heard about it through email, so maybe we can promote using more email or something. And if they say they never heard about it through YouTube or something, maybe I think we can find some appropriate solutions accordingly to their response. So just by figure out some methods that work and doesn't work in the past. And this is the link to the survey.
So after getting the survey, there are some ways to be more, based on survey, we could encourage programs to apply. If they say they heard about the budget, DASG's budget through their college, then we should maybe introduce an affiliate program. If they heard it from social media, we could maybe create an informational video and post it on the appropriate social media. Or if they said, like, heard it from their participants, their students, we could send maybe posters or note cards to their students and encouraging them to inform their advisors to apply for our budget.
Yeah, that's it. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good job, Kate and Lydia's interns. Round of applause again for them. All right, so you guys are suggesting, okay, so I know you guys have a bit of stuff here. And there's quite a bit of stuff that we can unpack here, but I guess the main gist of it is that you guys want to make a survey form.
Yes.
Just to like bolster the communication between finance and the budgeters. Essentially, right? Yeah. Dennis, the way we do it right now, I think it's just through email usually, right?
Yeah,
But each college budgeter or each administrator and staff or faculty has a college email account.
yeah, you basically send it to all current budgeters and administrators. And I look up and make sure that basically all other administrators and different program coordinators and so on, and all the different administrative assistants and executive assistants are also on my. And at the top and bottom of the email, the notice, we would, please share this with everyone in your. Also include last mentioned and then.
One thing we've never really done, since we're talking about outreach, is I think we should put together some kind of information session. And maybe do it by Zoom and offer maybe 2 or 3 different sessions, like half-an-hour sessions. For all the various departments, because we have made quite a bit of changes over the last few years. And to go over the form with them, and especially if we're gonna have a new form this coming year, to do, to do some info sessions, invite. It's not mandatory for them to submit a proposal, but it would be helpful for them to participate, because we can help guide them in our new form and process, so. So maybe that's something we should do next year, and then maybe that could be a part of the standard, part of our standard work for the finance committee. So setting those up, and maybe we do one in person, maybe during the actual finance meeting, and then maybe do 2 online, so people have a choice, or we just do 1 online recorded, so that, folks who can't make it, can be given the recording.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And then you can all introduce yourselves too, right, so that people know who the finance committee is. I think that would be a great way to do outreach, and then you can also do Q&A, because let me tell you, I can't even tell you how many people contact me and we still ask some of the basic questions about filling out the form. The biggest complaint I hear is that it's just there's a lot of information on there that we don't need to.
Right, yeah, hopefully that's something that we can talk about more when Aaron gets here. But I really like that idea. I think that also provides the new interns an opportunity, like next year, an opportunity as well to kind of like see the process explained again. I think just hearing it a few times for me isn't really enough. You actually have to either be there, or I don't know, maybe just hear it more, or maybe if we actually we prepare like a really nice presentation, right, with like a lot of graphics, actually going through the form itself. I think that would also help both the budgeters and also the new interns as well. So I think that's a really great idea, actually, that we can do. So yeah, in terms of the survey, we do have, so from what I know, in terms of the feedback that we kind of get, the only thing I know is that when we conduct the interviews, we ask them, do you guys have any questions, and do you guys have any like yeah, basically questions, and we kind of take input in that section of the interview.
But this way, this is anonymous, so they can be free to criticize us if they would like to. That way they might see it as being rude, but now this is just the purpose of the form, to criticize us and to improve.
I think that's, yeah, you wanna say something?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, okay.
Once
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah, I mean, having an official direct two-line communication, I mean, I know there is email, but having more lines of communication, I think is okay. And I mean, if we just put this form out and then we just check for responses, I think that's also pretty okay work. Like, it's not too difficult for us either, so I could definitely see this working. That is.
Also, I made sure to add this to the agenda, but if this is going to be discussed more next week, we want to also make sure that we're talking about special allocations as well, not just the annual budget process, but also outreach about special allocations available for the current fiscal year. Especially next year, we need to make sure that we are getting the word out, because there's going to be a lot of special allocations money next year. But we also need to be clear that when we do let people know about that, we let them know that it really can't be used for any ongoing funding. But because it's not necessarily going to be that much in future years. But that this might be a great time for any, one-time large funding transfers. That's probably.
Right, actually, yeah, I think Dennis makes a really great point. So if we were to, let's say, do special allocations, if we were to do special allocations outreach, that wouldn't start by next fall, that would start like as soon as possible, right? That's correct. So I think focusing on developing outreach, because we don't want to overload you guys as well, because there's a lot like doing survey and then like doing outreach for both, developing the outreach for both next year's budget, this year, and I guess by extension, next year's special allocations, just special allocations in general, is a lot. So I think it could be good for you guys to kind of go back and talk about which ones you like to focus on. I mean, if you want to do all three, you can, if you feel like that's possible, but yeah, I think it'd be good as well, to talk about outreach for special allocations and also next year's, budget forms. Does it sound good? Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you wanna develop this further as well, like, be my guest, that's fine, but I would also like a little bit more discussion on those two other things. Are there any questions? Yeah, so, let us know what you guys cook next week, so. But, oh, right. Okay, and then finance canvas video update, decided to discuss the progress in the finance canvas shell video. Benjamin is over there. So I know that we agreed to meet tomorrow to film my part. And then, is that it?
Luca's currently working on the editing of the video, and we're expecting to get it done by next Monday.
Oh, so you'll have something to present next Monday?
Next Monday or the Monday after. Next Monday, yeah.
Next Monday, okay, all right, I'll hold you to that then. So we'll be able to see the video by next month. Okay. Seems pretty good to me. I guess if that's the case, we can move on to public comments, or the any public comments. Alright, seeing none, if you want to advise announcements, any advisor announcements?
If anybody would like to come to the board meeting, which is at the Hill, I know there are a number of senators, that are gonna go up there, to support, I don't want to get into it, but, to support a new student services building, which would house, the Office of College Life, which would impact our DSG and ICC. So the district is trying to decide, well, first of all, we're trying to get clarity on whether or not, where this money is being directed to. And so a number of us are showing up, but just to see more students there would be awesome. I think it would make a really, important statement to the board, that these kinds of issues really do matter to us. So if you're not doing anything tonight, talk to Lydia.
Just the student services, or is it also the
The medical building is not on the agenda, so we can't make a public comment about it, so. But we do want to make some noise about, the new student services building, because, there were plans to build this building, and now it seems to be diverted with other plans, so we're just trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, today's meeting is a special meeting of the board, mostly to talk about some of the key issues, with the primary focus being electrification of, HVAC and so on. But I do believe, well, I don't know exactly what's going to be on the agenda, but next week there's a regular board meeting. And there may be additional Measure G and medical center items on that agenda, but even if there aren't, it's a regular meeting, so people can do public comments about anything. It's a special meetings, you can only make comments about what's on the agenda.
Thank you, Hunter. Thank you, Dennis. So interns, if you guys are interested, that will be held at Foothill, I believe. So, yeah, and when does it start again? The board meeting?
It starts at 6.
Six.
Yeah, so we need to probably be here, in the next 5-10 minutes to get up there. And, if we're gonna make a public comment, we have to make it early. to submit our request.
Yeah, so it's got, it starts at 6 and it's at Foothill, so if any of you guys are interested, please go. All right, so if there are no more advisor announcements, then we can move on to the introduction and approval of prospective interns. Are there any prospective interns? Who guys? Yeah, okay. And then I believe this is your second meeting now for the both of you. Do you guys, right? You guys want to do your interviews today? Wait, have you guys done the finance quiz? No. Okay, so why don't you just come up here first? And fill in your names, what you guys did last time, and then we can talk a little bit after. Okay, so it should be, so seeing you guys go. Each calls, the school process. Canvas. So you can only see the edit. You guys will have access to the finance quiz. Thursday, you said, technically, you could probably. If this will be more. It's like showing back. You are. Yeah. No more. I haven't said it yet. Okay, I assume this meeting at 4 p.m.
Saying you invite it to a canvas course.
Yeah. Just let me know.
Once you have.